Hello, and welcome to the He Said, She Said podcast. I'm Doug Austin, editor of eDiscovery Today, and I'm the He Said.
And I'm Christy Burke, president of Burke & Company, and I'm the She Said.
Welcome to our podcast, where we'll discuss interesting and educational trends within legal and eDiscovery communities. In today's podcast, we're examining the trends, challenges, considerations, and outlook for investment in legal tech and the companies who offer legal tech software and services. And we have 4 industry professionals and thought leaders who've been at the forefront of investment in legal technology. Christy, would you like to introduce our panelists?
Yes, thanks, Doug. We're very honored to have a distinguished panel of speakers today to speak about legal technology investment trends and future outlook. First, we have Wendy Curtis, Chief Innovation Officer at Orrick, Gregory Mazares, who's the Executive Chairman of ModeOne, Zach Posner, Managing Partner of the LegalTech Fund, and Basha Rubin, CEO and co-founder of Priori Legal. So thank you for joining us today, speakers. Very excited to hear your perspectives today. First question I have goes out to all of you, and I think I'll ask it in the order that I just gave your names. So Wendy, you'll be first. Question is, please tell us about your current role and responsibilities and what you think will be the major trend unfolding in 2023 from your point of view. So Wendy, please answer the question if you would.
Thank you, Doug, for having me, and I'm honored to be part of this group of panelists. So when I was thinking about today, I realized that it's been over a decade since the mantra emerged in the market that every company is a technology company. So while that concept is not new, we saw our ability to really imagine that change exponentially during COVID. And so at the end of 2022, we kind of rode that wave of incredible transformation. And now as we go into 2023, I imagine every single one of us, from our family and friends, are overwhelmed by the questions about ChatGPT and what that's going to mean for our future. So you asked me, Christy, what is my job and what do I do? So I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Orrick, and that means a lot of different things, including really reimagining the way that we deliver legal services to meet our customers' needs. And of course, technology is a huge part of that, and understanding the market and being able to really leverage the kinds of things that the other panelists are doing to better serve our customers is core to my job.
Great, thanks so much, Wendy, appreciate that. And Greg, how about you?
Thank you, Christy. Yeah, I'm currently doing a bunch of different things, and none of them on a full-time basis. So I guess I'd say that I'm doing things I love, and it's a great place to be for me. Currently, I'm executive chairman with a startup company called ModeOne Technologies, and ModeOne is revolutionizing the way data is collected from smartphones. And it's a lot of fun. I'm both executive chairman and an early stage investor in the company. I'm also a board member with a company called HCMC Legal, which is a national staffing company. I'm an M&A advisor with Arbor Ridge Partners, which generally represents companies on the sell side of M&A transactions. And I'm also a strategic advisor with a company called Cloud Court Inc., which is doing some great things relative to, as the founders like to call it, their money-balling data as it relates to depositions and the like. And finally, I'm consulting with a number of individual private equity firms who are interested in making acquisitions within the legal sector. As far as major trends, that I'm seeing in the industry, I thought about this a long time, and I came up with 3 words, frankly. One is remote. I'm seeing many innovations that relate to remote solutions for things that used to be done in person, in buildings with large groups of people. Now services are being delivered on a remote basis, and there's lots of new innovations in that regard. Next would be, and this has been around for a while, but it's continuing, process automation, or the word automation, doing fewer things better, faster, with fewer people. Not that people aren't important, they're critical, but efficiency is critical in this day and age. then the whole area of data and data science, I think is becoming a big area of focus within the industry. So those are three areas, and I'll stop there, that I see as major trends within new startups and investments.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Greg. Zach, what about you?
So thanks, Christy. Thanks everybody for kind of having me. So for those that don't know, my name is Zach Posner. I am a co-founder and the managing partner at the LegalTech Fund. We are an early stage investor, and we are trying to invest in companies that are transforming the world of law. I think, when you think of investors, you immediately go to the concept of financial capital. We are also trying to invest human capital. We are a vertical focused fund. Things in and around legal are the only things that we invest in. And so we're trying to help our companies in any way that we possibly can. We have 35 investments to date. And, we're keeping very busy. I think that if I go back and think about what we're thinking about for 2023, a simple answer is a lot of change. I think the trend that gets us the most excited is kind of when legal fades into the background a little bit and is incorporated into software that is being used by all different departments of different businesses to achieve the business goals. But when you kind of achieve those business goals by using software, there's kind of exhaust data that changes the way that legal is done. So I think that, more and more legal applications hidden within business applications that we're excited about. And of course, by the way, not to skip GPT-3, I think there's fascinating stuff, on the horizon, and all the stuff that was just mentioned as well.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Zach. Basha, last but not least, what about you?
Thank you so much, Christy and Doug, for having us. My name is Basha Rubin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Priori. Priori is legal marketplace for in-house teams to find, hire, and manage a global vetted network of attorneys at firms of all sizes. So we are helping companies achieve their outside counsel goals, unbundle legal services, drive diversity, drive cost savings, and drive efficiency in outside counsel procurement processes. I think my bona fides for being on this panel today are that we raised a $15 million round over the summer, bringing our total financing over $20 million. And I am very fortunate to have two of my investors on this call, Zach and Wendy. So really excited to have this conversation with this fantastic group. In terms of trends, number one has to be generative AI, chat, and GPT, and all the potential myriad applications to the business of law, which I think we are going to see many, many, many of in 2023, some of which have legs, some of which don't, but all of which are going to push our conception of how law is practiced, and I couldn't be more excited for it. I think that particularly as we're seeing some of the applications in the short term to the consumer space with what Do Not Pay is doing, I think we're going to be talking about it all year long. And number two is the sort of do more with less mantra, which as we come into a period of economic uncertainty, I think that companies that are focused on either driving efficiency or saving money are going to be experience significant growth, and there are many such companies, I think, in the legal sector that are at inflection moments, and we're going to see some breakouts this year.
Sounds like it's going to be an exciting year ahead from what all of you are saying. All right, I have another question for you all. And from your perspective, your unique perspective, what factors most influence legal tech investment in 2022? And what impact do you see those factors having in 2023? And how it will influence investment this year? So Wendy, if I could ask you to go first again, that would be great.
Sure, I didn't expect that. Okay.
Sprang it on you.
And I'm going to change my answer.
Oh, okay.
As I was thinking, so there was so much. So let me just say, as Basha said, we're an investor. Obviously, we're a law firm, so we're a consumer. We also spun out a company. So we have played the role as a leader of a company and actually in the process of selling technology. 2022 had an incredible amount of investment. And we saw at Zach's fund event just the amount of new entrants to the market. At the same time, as you go into 2023, as Basha said, we're all being asked to do more with less. There's certain fatigue. And so I think 22 is a year of investment. 2023 is going to have to be a year of focus on the behalf of the consumer. And as the provider or the legal tech company in this time of economic headwinds, the provider has to have a very clear value proposition that can be measured and seen almost immediately upon deployment, that doesn't require technical support, process management. People just don't have the energy in circumstances like we're expecting to see. So it's a wonderful thing that's now going to have to pivot to a realistic and very focused message about what does this technology do to solve the particular business problem.
Thanks, Wendy. Greg, let's hear your perspective on this question.
Well, I actually think, and I'm not going to be a negative contributor as far as the market's concerned. I just think things are going to slow down a little bit. I think people are going to have to take stock of all of the investment that was made last year. 2022 was crazy in my mind as far as all of the investments that were made. Not crazy in terms of making decisions, crazy in terms of the activity that we saw in the marketplace. Now companies are going to have to make sure that the investments they made can actually come to fruition, that they start to see results. Some of these investments are going to have to mature. We're seeing a lot of these companies that receive the investments. There's a lot of hiring going on within the industry. Companies are trying to operate, and they're going to move from startup mode to an operating mode to some extent. So bottom line is, I think there's going to be activity. There'll be less activity. It'll be more focused, as Wendy said. And I think that people are going to try to get their arms around all of the risks that they've taken, and the management teams in those companies to try to make sure they have stable companies with recurring revenue, happy clients, that their technology actually works, that they're listening to their clients, making enhancements, etc. That's where I see things in 23.
Super, Greg. Thanks so much. Zach, how about you? I think you're on mute.
I'm unmuted now. So, what influenced in 2022? And I think I want to make sure I'm not blending towards the end of 21 and 22. So I'll put them together a little bit. The influence, in my opinion, was the macro environment. Like, all of the headline numbers came from a lot of later stage investments. So it's when you see the massive numbers popping out at you, those are $50 million rounds in the later stage companies. And I think that I think that what you had over the past year and change, you've had these late stage companies that when the market started to rattle about a year ago, late stage investors, you see that in public companies, and then that slowly reverberates down, and they backed away a little bit from some of the pre-IPO investing, and that kind of gets pushed downstream a little bit over the past year. So from my end, I think that a lot of it has been macro, which has been driving like some of these shifts, and I think that kind of continues to push and influence investment as much as you can imagine this year, more than any other factor almost. I mean, that's kind of it's kind of more tracking at this stage. What's neat is LegalTech is almost tracking technology investment, which has been pretty neat. So I think it's more of a macro question and what's happening to the overall technology investing.
Got it. Thanks, Zach. Basha, you're next.
+1 to what Zach just said. I entirely agree. And, I would only add that I think there is a gold rush mentality to startup investing that trickled down to early stage, all kinds of startup investing, including legal tech investing, where I mean, just to use, and I am way out of my swim lane depth, whatever metaphor you want to use when I talk about crypto, but everyone and their grandmother was a crypto investor in December 2021, and could the tides have turned more in the last 10 months, which is not to say I'm not bullish on crypto in the long term, but I think that we saw many of those same dynamics at a smaller scale in legal. For example, there is a huge amount of CLM investment that happened and that drove some of those big headline numbers over the last 18 months. And there's a mentality around it that A, follows the market, but B, follows the dynamic within the smaller market that you're looking in, right? Once someone's, I'm just throwing around my sports metaphors today, but once someone's betting on a horse, people are going to bet on other horses too. And we know, and that fuels itself. And so I think that as we head into what looks to be, though is hopefully not, a weaker overall macro climate, I think that what investors are looking for overall will change in terms of the kinds of companies that are successful, looking for example, profitability over growth. But from what I've heard and seen, and not necessarily like complete profitability, but like path to profitability versus major headline growth numbers. I think that just like there is continued investment in the overall technology market, just with maybe lower valuations, maybe looking at different kinds of companies, we are going to see those same trends reflected in our segment of the industry.
Thanks, Basha. I want to thank you all for sharing your perspectives. It's very interesting. I haven't actually heard a lot of these ideas, so it's very refreshing for me to hear a lot of new ideas and new things. So now I'm going to turn it over to my illustrious co-host, Doug, who's going to ask individual questions so you can tell us about your individual expertise. Doug?
Great, thanks, Christy. So let's start by talking where LegalTech is going from a firm perspective for a moment, a little bit more about that. So Wendy, as you've already talked about, Orrick has been very active in LegalTech investment as innovation is a cornerstone of the firm's value proposition. So how do you think law firm technology investment in innovation will evolve in 2023?
So I want to pick up on something that Greg said. I think we're going to see a change in the consumer behavior that's going to really impact recurring revenue. So for those of us who are customers, who many folks in the market bought a lot last year, there was a lot happening. They wanted to make sure that they had all of the technology. If that technology has not shown value quickly, I think there will be much more scrutiny and rigor around the decision about whether to renew a license. I think for companies that already are part of the stack for a law firm or are join the stack in 2023, if those are successful quickly, the consumer is going to double down in the tools that are working for them and try to leverage what they have to solve the problems that the tools are intended to solve, and probably get a little creative to see if they can put them together. I think the focus on interoperability, APIs, the ability to move data across tools in the core legal business, either in the way that we serve our clients, so using data to derive legal insights, or the business side, right? Who are our clients? Are we profitable? All of that is going to be a big focus. And so it's going to be interesting to see who holds on to and gains market share with that kind of change in consumer behavior.
Okay, great. Thanks, Wendy. So next, let's focus on Let's Support and e-discovery, which is my favorite topic. Greg, you're a longtime investor in LegalTech, particularly in Let's Support and e-discovery. And in your 30 plus years in the business, you've worn many hats on both the business and investment side. So Given that experience, what factors do you look for to consider whether to make an investment in a company in the lift support or e-discovery space?
First of all, two different things. It depends on whether it's a startup company or if it's one that is more fully established. If it's a startup company, first and foremost, I want to invest in the founder or founders. I think that this is all about people at the end of the day, and I need to have great confidence in the people that are going to steer the ship. I don't want to get in their way, but I want to help them be successful. But you've got to have great leadership and great vision. One of the things I look for before making an investment is I'd like to know what inspired the founders to actually get involved in the business, and why, and whether it's a passion of theirs. There are some people who start businesses up because they really love and understand what they're doing, and they have just great passion. They eat, sleep, and drink what they're doing. Hopefully not to the detriment of having a life and being happy, but they're really into what they're doing. Other people start things up because they're looking for something to do. I mean, I've seen that happen as well. They're not really they don't love what they're doing. So I want someone who's got a great idea, who is inspired, who loves doing what they're doing, and has particular skills. Secondly, have to solve a problem. So if we're talking again about a startup, I'm looking at the proverbial adage of problem solution. What's the problem and what are they resolving? How are they going to make things better than they were before they came along? And bottom line is, there's a lot of great people out there with wonderful ideas, and I think the most important thing is to give them a chance to explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what their plan is. What's their vision? Where are they going to take it? And how important are people versus technology versus process going to be? We all know that all three areas are going to be critical to ultimate success. When it comes to investing in an established e-discovery business, and I'll be brief on this so we can move forward, I look for the following. How strong not only is senior management and continuity of management, but what about the critical areas of project management, critical areas of sales, and of course, operations leadership. I have found over many, many years, the companies that are most successful are those that have continuity of great people. And they've established processes that are repeatable and that work over and over and over again. Some companies in the industry have a list of clients that have been their clients for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. That's the kind of company that I'm looking to invest in. I don't want to invest in companies that are suffering from the so-called leaky boat syndrome, where they bring in a client, they don't perform, then they have to replace that client with a new client over and over and over again. So bottom line is, the companies that are great at execution in e-discovery, in my experience, are the winners. They're the ones that have tended to grow, to be sustainable, and have been successful over time. That's what I look for in an investment in that area.
Great, couldn't agree more, Greg. Thanks, Greg. So now let's take a look from an investment fund perspective. So Zach, as head of the LegalTech fund, you have a unique perspective in seeing both the investment and investor perspective. So in your opinion, will investment in LegalTech be focused in any particular categories of the market? And what do you think will make the difference between companies who win investment funds versus those who are unsuccessful?
So I think that the categories that are going to work well and you're going to see dollars flowing into, some of the stuff we've discussed here already, are the ones that, you know, the normal person can understand. And I say that because that means it can attract investment from anybody. So the things Basha mentioned, contract lifecycle stuff. We mentioned AI and GPT-3. There's contract automation. There's contract analytics. I think all of those categories, because everybody that's ever, you know, signed a legal doc as in theory understands that there's got to be something, some method to compiling that. So that means that you have kind of the widest net to cast of prospective investors. And I think that, there is an argument that says, hey, legal is it's time for legal. So I think that the categories we've seen the investment in before will continue. I think that, as a few folks have mentioned in different iterations on this call, the difference is good ideas were getting funding and getting funding at healthy valuations in the last couple of years. And I think that kind of stops. I think that a lot of the characteristics, ideas are going to get to see, there's going to be a product market fit that can be demonstrated at the earliest stage by, letters of intent, but can be demonstrated by engagement on a product that can be demonstrated. Wendy mentioned the concept, how quickly can software get up and get integrated? And then that moves from there to this concept of like revenue. So I think that we're already seeing a big shift where you're moving from like ideas to more vetted concepts that will work with product market fit. And I think that's going to be the real difference. Like, I'm not, we have seen a dramatic slowdown for companies that have an idea and we're just not seeing funds being available. I would say for the companies that are demonstrating progress and as we consistently check back with them, they're making more progress. They're, eventually going from that concept to revenue. Like, those companies seem to be navigating the waters just fine right now in the fundraising side.
All right. Great. Thanks, Zach. So finally, let's get the perspective from someone heading up a legal tech company receiving investment. So Basha, tell us about Priori Legal and how you and your team have been successful in obtaining investment dollars as a legal tech company. Especially, what do you think the X factor was that helped you succeed? And what would you recommend to startups who are looking for investment in 2020?
Thanks, Doug. Great question. I was reflecting in advance of the call about the many, many ways in which I could answer it. And I kept coming back to the fact that Priori wasn't an overnight success, and that narrative runs counter to a lot of the hoopla and hype in startups generally. And it kind of reminds me, I'm sure we all knew these people who in college or law school wanted to brag about how little they studied versus how well they did. And I think that there's a similar thread that runs through startup narratives. You had an idea, you were 19 years old, you dropped out of prestigious university, and then 2 years later, you were a billionaire. And that is, as it transpires, not how it happens for most people, no matter what I thought when I started my journey a little over 10 years ago. And we had to work really hard. And we had to be really humble about what wasn't working with Priori. We were a little bit too early for our market. It's ripened significantly since we started. We didn't have the right, we didn't have product market fit. We didn't have the right, we had the right product, basically, but not the right market. We originally started focused on individuals and small businesses, and the unit economics of that business didn't work. But we really believed that a legal marketplace could transform the legal services landscape, and that somebody building a legal marketplace, and this is what what Greg said about founders who are passionate really resonates with me. That is what kept myself and my co-founder, Mira Levitt, who I met while we were classmates at Yale Law School, going when things weren't always working with Priori. That we believed that someone was going to build $1 billion business doing exactly what we were doing. And we sure as hell wanted it to be us. Because we not only, we thought it was also an idea that was going to transform an industry that we cared about deeply for the better. So I say stick-to-itiveness, otherwise known as perseverance. A lot of hard work. And then finally, I think, and and I hope that one of the things that we've done well is really build relationships across the legal ecosystem and really relied on our investors, our customers, and other people who have had no reason to help us by asking their advice and really trying to stay close to what the industry was thinking, what was valuable, both in terms of how we evolved our product and how we evolved our messaging. And having those deep relationships over time, I think, has been tremendously beneficial for the company. And I think in part it's because we love being part of this ecosystem. We love what we're doing. And we really want to work with everybody to transform the industry for the better. That said, it is hard out there. Raising money was hard. Raising money in legal tech was hard. Raising money as two female co-founders was doubly hard, shall we say? And so to those who are out there, I would say it only takes one. For our seed round in 2017, easily met with over 100 investors, and almost all of them rejected us. And I don't really like being rejected, as probably most people don't, but having a strong co-founder helped with that. But we finally got one, and then one snowballed to two, and two snowballed to three. And we, rather dramatically managed to close our round while we were both had babies 12 days apart. We closed our round 6 weeks later. We had about less than a couple of months of runway left. So I have all the empathy and sympathy in the world for those who are out there going through it.
Great. Thanks, Basha. Very enlightening answers from all of you, and I'm learning a lot. This has been fun. So, Christy, I'll turn it back over to you to ask the last question.
Thanks so much, Doug. I completely agree. This has been great. I'm going to ask all four of you to pull out your crystal balls now, and we're going to look a little farther into the future. And this time I'm going to start with Greg, so Wendy gets a break being first all the time. So the question is, talking about the future of legal tech investment and taking 2023 as the first year, what do you foresee as the major forces shaping legal tech investment, and where do you see the industry heading over the next 3 to 5 years? Greg, how about you?
I've been thinking a lot about this. I think we might be moving from an era of trying to seek investment from individuals or small groups, which has been, a lot of that's been out there. I actually think that we're going to see companies that are partners or channel partners or part of a syndicate within the industry that are going to make investments in technology and other product. In other words, I think that the time is coming where a lot of companies have matured and they're looking for ways to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. So there are many services providers, for example, that are looking to make investments in new technologies that will make them even better or differentiate them from the guys down the street. And I'm aware there are some companies out there that are seeking investments from companies that are not direct competitors, but are peripheral to them, that will use their technology to better serve their clients. And therefore, they may represent a new source of capital. So I'll call it a legal investment syndicate of companies, as opposed to a legal investment syndicate of individual or small group investors. The other reason that this makes sense to me is because those companies that are investing are going to do everything they can to make their investments a resounding success in the marketplace. Therefore, you're not only getting their money, you're getting their relationships, you're getting their expertise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is going to be something that we may see more of in 2023 and beyond, especially in some of these markets that are maturing, where these companies are struggling in many cases to differentiate themselves from their many competitors. And I just feel that this may be a way for them, one way for them to do that.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, Zach, let's hear your answer on this one.
Thanks, Christy. I think it's not so far off from what Greg was saying. I mean, I think it's really saying there's going to be companies that are going to look at legal as almost like a competitive advantage and how you build this into workflows. If you think about different categories of software, the first one from an enterprise sale side was this like CRM. Second, then you went into like this marketing automation. Then you went into fintech and refactoring all your financial systems. Then you went into HR, and it feels like legal is really next. But again, going back to that concept of that Greg was mentioning of it kind of blending together, like that's a big theme that we see. Where is it legal software to help with contract automation, or is it like sales enablement software? And I think that those are the types of softwares that are going to get implemented quickly when you have like business unit buy-in, opposed to the stuff that's just trying to say, hey, we're just trying to solve this legal problem. So we think there's going to be a blend of a lot of these things coming together, and those will be the companies that'll get implemented quicker, that'll get procured quicker, implemented quicker, and up and going quicker. And so, yeah, we think this is, we really do think we're just getting started here. We're in the early innings and excited to see it play out.
Terrific, Zach. Thanks so much. Basha, how about you?
I agree largely with what both Greg and Zach have said on this topic so far. I would reiterate that I think that in terms of what we will see in 2023, I expect very much it's going to follow overall macro trends. And I think in many ways, legal is well positioned within that, given that many legal tech startups have been attentive to revenue growth versus something more speculative, which, as that, the big idea that never came to fruition. And so I think that many legal tech startups are in a strong position for fundraising, or at least a relatively stronger position in fundraising than they were versus other kinds of technology startups a couple of years ago. So I think from that perspective for the industry, relatively speaking, I think that it has the potential to be a strong year. But if it's a weak year in the economy, I think we are very much likely to follow that.
Thanks so much, Basha. Okay, Wendy, the last word goes to you on this.
All right, so I think the last part of your question is, where did I think the industry was going to go in the next 3 to 5 years? And I started with that now decade-old mantra that every company is a technology company. I suspect everybody on the panel would say that legal is probably one of the later industries to really understand that. However, if you don't know now, it's going to be very difficult to catch up and not be rendered obsolete. And I read this morning in the Gartner Hype report that for the most mature and successful legal tech companies, on average, they only had 50% market penetration. I can't fathom how that isn't going to dramatically change. If there's going to be a foundational amount of technology, AI, efficiency, that will be the minimum to be meeting the expectations of your customers. So this change is going to continue, and the adoption of this successful legal technology companies is going to have to scale more because you can't function without it.
Thanks so much, Wendy. And thanks to all of our speakers. I'm going to turn it over to Doug now to close us out. Thanks to everyone. Doug?
All right. Thanks, Christy. And very educational and interesting discussion today. I certainly learned a lot. So I want to thank Wendy, Greg, Zach, and Basha for being our guest on the He Said, She Said podcast, and to Christy for, as always, being an excellent She Said. I always mess that up. To my He Said. Look forward to seeing you all next time on the He Said, She Said podcast. Goodbye and have a great day.